Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV WORLD. And as always in the debate, we bring you different stories from around the world, sometimes also from within Pakistan, and try and discuss all the different aspects that there are to a story so that you're able to form an informed opinion. With regards to today's topics, we have two very important topics to discuss. First of all is with regards to the recent attack in Abu Dhabi that we know of, which has resulted in the loss of lives of at least 3 people and has injured many others. And we know that this attack has come in Abu Dhabi, something which is not unprecedented. Similar attacks have been done in the past as well, and point to an increasing frequency of proxy wars that are being conducted in the Middle East, and the way that regional powers have come into play with different forces, both within the countries and then, of course, outside the region as well. We also know that there has been talk by the Houthi rebels saying that they have done this attack with regards to balancing the equation. We'll explore in further detail what exactly that means and how the regional forces will play in the aftermath of this attack, and what really is the concerns with regards to the politics that actually affect the entire region, both within the countries and of course as an overall region as well. So exploring the situation and the political scenario in the Middle East in detail, with a specific focus with regards to the aftermath of this current attack. We will also be taking a look at the situation in India, but right now from a completely a different angle as to what we've looked at in the past as well. With regards to the Modi regime, we know that we've talked about so many of the instances where there is increasing discrimination and violence, and so much sorrow and pain that comes in from the news. But this time around, we've got some content that actually puts a smile on our face. So that's at least a plus that's come from the Indian side. We know that recently, while speaking at the World Economic Forum, Prime Minister Narendra Modi seems to have been a bit lost. The teleprompter seems to have failed him, and he apparently had no words in his own mouth to speak. And that, of course, points to the fact that what we're looking at in terms of the leader over there, perhaps it's not just that he is devoid of words, he may be also devoid of the capacity to think and speak from his own mind. We'll explore that, what it means in terms of what the future holds for India when we have such leaders in power. As of course, as usual, we have been joined in the studios by Mr. Farrukh Pitafi and Mr. Faisal, who are there in the studio with us. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we will also be joined online by respected guests to talk more about our first segment, which is with regards to the attack in Abu Dhabi and what it means for the geopolitical situation in the Middle East. For this, we will be joined on telephone line by Fahim Al-Hamid, who's a strategist and specialized in the conflict zone with regards to Saudi Arabia and Pakistan relationship. And we're joined on Skype by Umar Karim, who's a research fellow at the Royal Institute, United Institute. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Umar and Mr. Fahim. I'll go ahead with a package that has been prepared by our team before we start our discussion.
A suspected drone attack by Yemen's Houthi rebels targeted a key oil facility in Abu Dhabi that killed 3 Abu Dhabi National Oil Company employees on January 17th. The police identified the dead as 2 Indian nationals and 1 Pakistani. The investigators pointed out that small flying objects hit the oil tankers that caused the fire at the airport. In response to the attack, the UAE authorities said that they reserved the right to respond after the Houthi attack. Saudi Arabia and UAE are allies and leading the coalition against Yemeni Houthis. The Houthis claimed that UAE and Israel have established diplomatic relations, therefore they consider both of them enemies. The Houthi attack drew widespread condemnation from the international community and described them as a cowardice attempt. The attack indicates that the Yemen crisis is a threat to regional peace and stability. It is now up to the coalition partners, regional countries, and international community to take measures that may help resolve the crisis.
While you saw the report and you heard what is going on around in the Middle East, we will be joined by Mr. Fahim on telephone line, but we have already been joined by Mr. Umar Karim on Skype. Thank you very much, Mr. Umar, for being with us on the debate. My first question will be to you with regards to the attack that we've recently seen in Abu Dhabi, something that in the past has also occurred in the region with similar powers at play. But we also understand that, of course, when we see such an attack and the aftermath, it sort of brings to the forefront forefront what really is going on. Does this sort of attack has that sort of a capacity in terms of highlighting what exactly is going on and who are all at play in the political scenario in the Middle East? Does this attack actually have the ability to shake things up a bit?
Definitely. This is a political earthquake in a way, although it's a military act of military aggression, but it's also is an earthquake that has rattled leaderships in the broader Gulf, but also particularly in UAE as well. Because the last such attack it happened in 2018, and since then in I mean in UAE, since then there hasn't been any attack on UAE, and also the UAE announced in a relatively covert manner of withdrawing its forces from Yemen. Certainly, that didn't mean UAE withdrew from its political influence, specifically in southern Yemen. So these drone attacks and missile attacks have been happening constantly, actually, but they were directed towards Saudi Arabia and Saudi cities, and there were also casualties, but within Saudi Arabia. So after 2018. This is the first time Abu Dhabi has been directly hit. The Abu Dhabi airport has been hit. The Abu Dhabi port has been hit. And let me give you actually a very interesting geographical snippet about these locations, that they are around 20 kilometers from the presidential palace of Abu Dhabi. They are also like 10 to 15 kilometers from the main business area or the hub of Abu Dhabi, the downtown, you can say, and also from very critical installations. So this de facto means that all of these all of these very high profile places, they were also possible to be attacked, and they could have been attacked.
All
But
right.
right now they attacked, although these two locations are also significant.
Right, and with regards to what, of course, you've been saying with the intensity and the high profile of the potential targets, and the ones that were actually targeted as well, this, of course, poses a question as to how did these drones, in fact, go undetected? Where were the defenses, or were they not good enough? Is there something that perhaps, in terms of the way that this attack would have been avoided, points towards in terms of the defense capabilities, and also perhaps the allowance that may have been made?
True. Yeah, this raises a very vital question towards the air defense capabilities of UAE, but also towards the intel which the Emiratis were getting from Yemen, because we know these attacks have been happening constantly. Like every day, there is an attack in Saudi Arabia, but most of the times, these drones and missiles are able to be struck down by the Saudi air defense. But this time it didn't happen. It means that they caught Emirati security infrastructure off guard, and the Emiratis were not expecting. Although I can say that there were clear political reasons for such an attack, and it was clearly coming. Also, another question would be, from where did this drone approach these locations?
Right.
Did it come through the Saudi empty quarter, Rubbe Khali, from through the Saudi territory, and then approached, entered the UAE territory, or did it came through Yemen, and then because the Houthis have taken the responsibility, so we have to track down the
Right.
initial location and
Umar,
then the point of contact.
right. Umar, as we speak, reports are emerging that the Arab coalition has pounded the Houthi strongholds in Yemen. Now, the question right now is, we understand that, as you have pointed out, it was quite a provocation. What exactly, if you're looking at the escalation ladder, what is the limit here? Do you think that this can spill out of the region? It can become something broader, or it is going to remain within the Yemen area or adjacent areas?
I think it will remain within the conflict zone within Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. But it is also not a provocation. I mean, it's an act of provocation, but I would categorize it as a sort of an act of retaliation, because for last month or so, the Houthi rebels have been facing, after quite a while, some serious defeats on ground in the Yemeni governorate of Shabwa, and
Yeah.
that whole governorate has been cleansed from Houthi rebels, and now their positions in Marib are also under threat. And these two provinces, they are geopolitically very significant, because if the Yemenis lose their positions in
May I
Marib
cut you
now,
here and very
that
quickly ask you, you called it an act of retaliation. The problem is that we know that in Yemen, a civil war is going on, right? Houthi rebels are rebels. Whatever the action, retaliation should have been limited to within Yemen, but it fell out of this and went to UAE. And we cannot actually associate this kind of action when especially you are crossing the international boundary.
Before you answer, Umar, let me just welcome Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid, who has joined us on telephone line. Thank you very much for taking the time out to join us on the debate. Umar, you may continue to answer the question.
Okay, so yeah, no, of course I completely agree with the point Tafsab has raised, but just to contextualize this debate, that the Yemeni forces who have actually pushed Houthi rebels from Shabwa, they're known as the Giants Brigade, and they are an Emirati funded and supported Yemeni unit. So this is actually in a while, for some time, first active involvement of Emirati proxy forces within this conflict. Otherwise, of course, we would have thought, why no attack before in UAE, because the attackers definitely have the capacity to launch this sort of an attack. So I think that this, as Pitafi said, this is an escalation ladder. So right now, the Houthis have shown their card that we can disrupt, you can say, Emirati economic activity by such attacks. I heard that the South Korean president, who was in UAE, he didn't meet the UAE Crown Prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and actually flew to Riyadh, and he's now in Saudi Arabia. And also, geographically, Saudi Arabia is a much bigger country, so probably they had been able to absorb such attacks, even if these drones or missiles were not detected. But for UAE, you can say the targets list is huge, and I'm not sure how much they are actually ready to counter these attacks.
Yeah, Brother Fahim, welcome to the show. And I just wanted to ask you, earlier we were talking about certain facts on ground. Of course, there is a reaction from Saudi Arabia plus the coalition forces that pounding did take place of Yemen, especially the Houthi strongholds. I just wanted to know, will the coalition forces stop here, or they would further conduct the operations, or could we say that there will be a partial invasion of Yemen to make Saudi Arabia and the coalition forces further secure?
Hello?
Hello?
Mr. Fahim, can you hear us?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Fahimul Hamid Saab, can you hear us? There seems to be some.
Yeah, I think there is a problem. And if we can ask the same question from Brother Umar. Brother Umar, you heard the question, sir.
Hello. Well, from actually with the producer, so if
Yeah,
you can.
I think Brother Umar can reply that question.
Actually, I think Mr. Umar wants you to repeat the question.
Yeah, if I can repeat it. You earlier mentioned that the pounding did take place by the coalition forces of Yemen, especially when we talk about the Houthi rebels, wherever they are, the pounding is taking place. But will they stop here, or the coalition forces under the leadership of obviously UAE and Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is leading the camp. Could we say that there will be a partial invasion of Yemen as well to stop all of this terrorism?
No, I won't say there would be an invasion, because there are already ground forces within Yemen who are fighting Houthis and who seem to be quite well equipped, and they have held their line. But the crucial question is, these are more mostly Saudi, you can say Saudi-backed groups. The crucial question is, will the Emiratis now go on with their relatively more active and kinetic involvement in the conflict, or will they now, you can say, draw down again their more heightened, you can say, military involvement? Because these gains, these military gains, were only possible by the broader coordination between the Saudi-supported Yemeni forces and the Emirati-supported Giants Brigade. Otherwise, it would have been quite difficult. And also, these bombings and aerial raids, I'm not sure how much strategically efficient they are, and they can actually change a scenario on ground, because these bombings have been happening for quite some time, and actually they were not really advantageous for the coalition, because it resulted into civilian casualties, and then it resulted into a lot of backlash,
Right.
specifically from the
Let me
Western world.
include Mr.
And
Fahim in the
right.
conversation. Mr. Fahim, can you hear us this time around?
Yes, I'm hearing you, and I heard you also before.
All right, we unfortunately weren't able to hear you. Thank you very much for taking the time out to be part of the debate. With regards to, of course, the aftermath since the attack has taken place in Abu Dhabi, we're discussing the kind of political scenario that is currently existing, and then, of course, what sort of a situation will there likely be in the near future, whether or not there is an escalation in terms of military terms. With regards to the kind of gesture or the kind of showcasing of an ability that is there with this attack, do you think that the symbolic power that has perhaps been extended says something or gives a message which changes the way that perhaps regional players are being looked at in the Middle East?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to ask this question, but before that, I would like to stress in three very vital points. With full respect to our distinguished guest, we should not move around the issue. The core issue of this conflict is the Iranian regime backing a militia with ballistic missile, with expert, with Revolutionary Guard, and with expert from Hezbollah. I would like to say this loud and clear. This is the core of the conflict. Speaking and giving geopolitical scenario about Shabwa and Ma'rib and claiming that there is an invasion, I don't think this will help the reader to understand exactly what is what and who's and who. There is no invasion at all since 7 years, and won't be also. The invasion was by the Iranian regime, the dictatorship of Khomeini and Raisi, supporting a militia which is a sectarian one. Number two, what happened, the terrorist attack which took place to Abu Dhabi, as per the Wall Street Journal, I would like to address your respected observer and strategist. If they read it or no, if they read it, it's very fine. If they did not read it, they have to cross-check their diaries again. The Wall Street Journal broke the story saying that this type of missile might be cruise missile. And let's maybe it's hypothetical scenario, but cruise missile cannot come directly from Houthi area, because
Your voice seems to be breaking up, Mr. Fahim. Oh, we unfortunately have lost contact with Mr. Fahim. Yes, Faisal.
Yeah, if I could ask another question from Brother Umar. Brother Umar, we know that very important event is going to take place in the Gulf states, one of the Gulf states. Of course, I'm talking about FIFA World Cup 2022, and it is going to take place. Do you think that this attack will actually affect the Gulf states, especially Qatar, and Qatar that is trying really hard to attract everyone to come to Qatar to enjoy the event. Would there be any effect on them?
No, no, absolutely not. Qatar is not a party to this conflict. Qatar is not involved, and hypothetically, Qatar can be attacked, but Qatar has never been threatened. Either Houthis, and yeah, I endorse what Mr. Fahim said regarding this, you can say, arsenal. The Houthis are not really capable of developing such missiles or drones. They have been supplied this by somebody. And of course, their political patron, it seems to be Iran. But then a counter question is, which is, I think, very interesting, that the Iranian president is actually coming to UAE. He has been given the invitation, and in some days he will be in UAE. So I think this will also be politically discussed there between the Iranians and the Emiratis, that how can they influence such actions of Houthis. But yeah, I agree that this is an equation where there is at one side coalition and of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain and UAE,
Right.
and on the other and
just
of
a
course,
quick question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, just another quick question. We know that the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, of course, they have a very good defense cooperation with the Western countries, especially I'm talking about Americans and the French I'm talking about. Will there be any question marks over their defense cooperation with these countries, or that would affect in a way that reliance on them would be reduced, or you think it would be increased?
I think both of these scenarios are taking place individually, because Saudi Arabia apparently is short on these Patriot missiles in order to counter these aerial objects which are being flown from Yemen. It has asked the U.S., but there is very strong, you can say, opposition within the U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives. So if they will be able to get it from the U.S., they are getting it from Greece right now. They have actually very strong, significant relationship with Greece. From France, I am not sure, but they have also asked their Gulf allies, like other Gulf countries, to help with this. And that's why there is a contingency plan now developed to rope in China and get some critical arsenal from China. But this is Saudi Arabia. The other thing is UAE. Because these same issues were not very significantly there for the UAE. So I think the UAE now would be easier for them. It would be easier to get support from Western
Let me
allies.
also welcome Mr. Fahim back in the debate. I believe he's joined us again. Yes, Farrukh, you can ask a question.
Right. Fahim Saab, are you with us?
Yes, completely. I am with you with heart and
Right.
mind.
Thank you very much for saying
But
that.
I'm afraid that the line was not discussed because of my direct transparency.
That's okay.
Right. Absolutely. Fahim, brother, let us talk about what you were saying earlier. Regardless of who is
Yes, I would like
sponsoring.
to ask your respected
Can I-
guest one question. if you don't mind,
will you allow me to ask a question regarding what is happening?
No, but I would like to
understand.
ask one question to your guest.
He wants to ask a question for
Yeah.
our
Okay, please
guest.
go ahead.
You can.
Go ahead.
I mean, if your respected, distinguished guest basing his information of shortage of ballistic missile from Wall Street Journal, then this is one-sided, brother. Please ask me the question.
You
Yeah.
can ask
Brother
the
Umar,
question now.
Brother Umar,
Let's
it's
Farrukh
a
ask the
question from
to
you, I
Mr.
guess.
Fahim. Let us give Farrukh a chance to ask the question first.
No, but
no,
if it is a
he
question,
has
directed to
I think
Umar.
he's asked Mr. Omar the question that perhaps if he goes through the journal,
it
he
was
has a
about the
different
ballistic
opinion.
missiles. It was about the ballistic missiles,
Yeah,
and
it
I
is
think Brother Umar
one-sided,
has
brother.
heard it.
It's not confirmed. If you are basing your narrative on Wall Street Journal, so it is not fair
yes,
and
it's
not,
not a question, just a
it's
concern.
biased one.
Exactly.
You are not in the ground operation to confirm that Saudi Arabia has short of ballistic missile.
Sure. Sure, point taken. We'll give Mr. Umar a chance to respond to that. Farrukh, you want to ask your question now, or should we go to Mr. Umar?
Yeah, I think
Umar first, then
Umar
I'm going
first.
to ask my question. Umar,
All right.
please respond.
Okay. Like Brother Fahim, you have to understand we have limited time here, so I cannot go through all the scenario. What I actually wanted to add at the end was
I
that the
understand,
Saudi
brother.
air
I have
defense is
40 years
actually
in
one of the
journalism.
most capable
Brother,
forces
I have
within the
40
world. They
years
have
in
actually downed
journalism, TV
more aerial
journalism, and
objects than the
I
United
understand
States
each and
air defense
everything.
as well. So they are,
Brother,
in terms of capacity, in terms
discuss
of their
you.
efficiency.
I would like
All
to
right,
tell
let us
you I have
actually hear
one
from
by
Mr.
one.
Umar
of
once.
experience
Let us
in
get his, Mr.
journalism
Fahim. Let us
and
get Mr.
TV
Umar's response, and then
journalism.
we'll come back to you. Let's give Mr. Umar a chance to respond to what you said earlier, and we'll come back to
Please
you.
don't teach me what I understand or what not.
Okay. Umar, very quickly,
okay,
make your
that's
point,
fine.
and then
That's
let us
fine.
go back to Fahim Saab.
Yeah, I
Umar,
think
go
that the Saudi air defense is quite capable of encountering such aerial targets. But the systems are American, and they need to be, they are not produced inside Saudi Arabia with great respect. So that's why the American support at this time is crucial. And this is not me saying, this is, of course, being said between the Saudi
This is very
officials,
professional.
conversations
Thank
with
All
the
right,
you very
American
much.
officials.
let's go to
That's
Mr.
why it's
Fahim.
critical.
Let us go to Mr. Fahim now.
Fahim Saab, you carry on, make your
Something
point, and then I have to
professional.
ask a question that has been waiting for ever. Please go ahead, sir.
The
Fahim
question
Saab?
to me?
Yeah.
Yes, I listen.
Should
What
I
is the
ask you the
question?
question, or you want to say something as a follow-up to what Umar said?
No, you asked the question. I am now free to
Okay,
answer.
that is awesome. Earlier, you were talking about this supply line or supply by Iran or other countries. The question at this moment is
I
because
wasn't
there has been
speaking.
an
I was
attack.
speaking,
No,
brother
hang on,
Farrukh,
sir. Fahim
that
sir,
the
allow me to
cruise
finish the
missile.
question, right?
Let's
Allow me to
I
finish
mean,
the question.
let's hypothetically say that the one-sided story of Wall Street Journal that there was a cruise missile, and let's base our discussion on hypothetical. Sometimes you need to base your discussion on hypothetical because it's one-sided. If we I mean give this narrative some authenticity, that's a cruise missile.
All right. Point
Investigation
taken,
is
Mr.
going on.
Fahim. We have a different question for you now, Mr. Farrukh. Let Mr. Farrukh ask you a different question
Fahim
now.
Saab, the question, regardless of Iran's involvement, and I understand that that is a big concern that has been highlighted for quite some time, the question at this moment is if the Houthi assailants are or terrorists are there and they are actually attacking UAE and Saudi Arabia. The biggest question is about degrading their capacity to attack. So that is one thing, and then denying them the access to all this weaponry. That means that we are talking about something that might be happening within Yemen. So what exactly will be the Arab coalition's approach to first degrading the capacity to attack in any of the coalition members? Secondly, depriving the rebels access to all these weapons.
Brother Farrukh, if we monitor closely the last 45 days of the Saudi coalition offensive against specific targets, it has affected massively. And for your information and for other information, there is unconfirmed report. Let me tell you again, unconfirmed report that Abdul Malik al-Houthi, this terrorist leader, has been killed from this aerial attack by the coalition. This is unconfirmed report because he did not appear for the last 30 days. So the massive aerial.
Unfortunately,
this is
we
very
have lost
important.
contact again. Was making an
Yeah.
important point. But with
This is a
regards
very
to, of
important
course, the way that we see the defense capabilities, and not just in terms of military capabilities, but in terms of the way that we'll see a response coming in, is important on how it goes ahead. With regards to what Mr. Fahim was earlier saying as well, Mr. Umar, pointing towards the proxy wars that are, of course, present in the Middle East, the way that these forces have certain impunity when it comes to the way that they act is a problem that, of course, is inherent in the way proxy wars work. How is it that perhaps the coalition forces or the different regional players can actually act in terms of fighting the problem of proxy wars, and not just targeting a particular country or a player, but actually having a certain consequence for the way that these nations contribute? Or do you think that that perhaps is an unavoidable consequence of geopolitics?
Yeah, no, true. It has been going on now for quite a lot of years, and the main issue at the heart of this is a lack of trust between the two sides. Definitely, the Iranian side has been, you can say, patronizing proxy networks, whether in Syria, whether in Iraq, whether in Lebanon, whether in Yemen, and because of their, you can say, more sophisticated methods, people can say that they control all the four capitals. On the other hand, we must say that Yemen intervention came from the coalition on the appeal of the Yemeni government. So it wasn't like a proper proxy, you can say, intervention. But for this to be solved, of course, there has to be a political, you can say, solution, a political solution between Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Houthis, and Yemeni government. All of them have to reach a political compromise, which seems quite difficult.
Right. So, do you think that we perhaps are not moving in that direction, or actually moving towards a direction in which players are going for under the table deals, perhaps, or going for other ways in which to bolster their defense capabilities instead of actually addressing the issue at hand? I believe Mr. Fahim has joined us in the conversation. Perhaps you can answer this.
Yes, I'm sorry, it keep on disconnecting, but let me just, point out very important again thing. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has presented many political initiatives to reach a comprehensive political solution. And the most recent one was before 6 months, and it has been agreed upon United Nations, European countries, and United States of America. So, I mean, when we speak about Saudi Arabia and Iran and Houthi to come out to any political solution, there is no, depth in this analysis. Saudi Arabia has put this initiative. Now, the big question to you and to the international community, for how long United States will keep Houthis out of the terrorist organization. During Trump organization, the Trump organization, they have declared Houthi as a terrorist. But Biden government come and they have ruled out this, and they put Houthi as a good gesture political organization. So it is now high time for Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, big Muslim countries to put pressure on Biden government. And because why brother Farrukh, why brother, my dear brother, when Houthi is going to touch the nerve of the economy, of the world economy, the petrol, we are not going to be affected only on Emirates. You will be affected, brother Farrukh, when you are going to go to your home. You will not find the petrol for that. But Mr. Biden's car also will be out of fuel. So if they are going to be careless about the threat of Iran in destabilizing the oil supply, all we are going to pay the price.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, Brother Fahim, I just wanted to ask you if Americans, obviously the Biden administration does not put the Houthis as or declare them as one of the terrorist organizations of the world, would it affect the defense cooperation between both of the countries, sir?
No, 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 no. Why? Because there is institutional agreement, defense agreement. But as an observer, let me tell you, as an observer, I have no, alhamdulillah, any portfolio official. But an observer, definitely, the way Biden government has slowly, sidelined themselves from this war, definitely, we are, as an observer, felt that, the Biden government, they are not, fair in dealing with the Yemen crisis.
We're almost out of time for this segment, but thank you very much, Mr. Umar Kareem and Mr. Fahim, for joining us again and again and coming back to the show. Before, of course, we move on to the next segment, Farrukh, you had something to add?
Right. I just wanted to say, regardless of how this thing actually shapes up, the first thing that we need to do is condemn these ghastly attacks and hope that this doesn't actually escalate into something bigger, because at this moment we know that the people who died included a Pakistani as well. And there is a big number of Pakistanis in UAE and Saudi Arabia. So let us keep on hoping for their safety as well. And let us hope that in coming days, this thing actually resolves itself rather than spilling into our region or elsewhere.
Absolutely. And this hope, of course, extends to all the citizens in different countries. And that is what we want for the region. And especially ours as well. When we talk about the situation in India now, with regards to what we see Prime Minister Modi facing when apparently the teleprompter failed him, first of all, Faisal, I'm sure you had a great laugh with the expressions that were seen on the man's face. He was absolutely lost.
Yes, it was. And you know what, Sana, this is quite interesting of me to talk about it as well, that a man who was born in 1950, and he is the same man who claimed that when he was 6-year-old, he was, selling tea at Vadnagar railway station,
which was not built that
which was built in 1973, and it did not exist before that. If we talk about his education or what kind of education he went through, he himself claimed, and he shown a degree as well, that he completed his graduation in 1978. And if we talk about his masters in whole political science or entire political science, that was he took it in 1984. And the most interesting thing here I want to talk about is that before 1988, none of the universities of India used to give the printed sort of degrees to any of its students, and they all used to be handwritten. But when Narendra Modi he gave his degree, it was the printed one, and you know what, in a font that was created by Microsoft in 1992. So we had the similar situation in Pakistan in which Calibri font was used when it was not even created. Same is the case with Narendra Modi as well. So it's lies after lies, lies after lies. This man does not know nothing. The only thing he knows about is that how to hate minorities, how to hate Muslims, and how to gain votes through that hate, nothing else.
Right, and as you pointed out to the similarity, Faisal, I believe that he can learn a few tricks from our side as well. If the teleprompter fails, there are other ways to actually carry on the conversation.
Exactly.
But of course, when we see such a thing coming out, one can obviously extend a sort of margin to somebody as to how technology has failed him. But with Prime Minister Modi, it goes beyond that, doesn't it, Farrukh?
Right, because why do you think it happens, or why do you think people are shocked? because there is a cult of Modi that has been actually built on all myths, as some of the myths were exploded by Faisal. Let me remind you that in every country, when it makes choices, you lose or gain respect, right? Here is a country that actually lost a prime minister that was PhD, Manmohan Singh, who actually rebuilt India's economy, and they traded him in for this gentleman. So at this moment, everybody says that, remember the 2014 elections, he was branded as Namo. Namo, that is the, shorthand for his name, Narendra Modi. So Namo was used, and of course, it is also a chant in Hinduism. So he was deified at that moment. So people are shocked that their so-called God cannot communicate without actually reading from the prompter.
But are they
There is, hang on, there is an advertisement of a chocolate bar in Pakistan where somebody actually stands up in the class, and all of a sudden when he is answering, he gets stuck. Somebody says that signals perhaps are weak and that is not being communicated. So then he takes the chocolate bar and then starts communicating.
So Modi needs chocolate.
So no, not chocolate. It seems that this time Modi's signals were also weak, right?
Okay.
And he one compliment also, quickly the way he actually shifted everything to Schwab and asked him whether you can hear me or whether you can understand me.
Right,
And that
because
was
that was
very
the problem.
smart. But with due respect, this is what happens when you are actually trying to build a cult of personality around a person whose only claim to fame is not only the murder of 2,000 people in Gujarat in 2002, but after that something else also happened. People were killed, Muslims were displaced, they went to the margins. They allowed his government, which was unelected at that time, allowed the rich Hindus to actually dump all the toxic waste near the Muslim population.
True.
And then after that, Modi would go to those camps and say that these are factories of baby manufacturing. Muslims are doing it. So that kind of person, if you're going to deify him, he's going to be a cause of laughter and humor.
Right, but my question is, has he really lost any of his cult followers? Has anybody actually stopped and thought, okay, perhaps this guy doesn't really make sense?
Has
that happened?
If the following is based on, I'm sorry, I'm going to hand it over to you, but if the following is based on rationality, then of course people are not blind. But if it is a blind faith, then people will continue to do it.
But is there rationality in Hindutva ideology?
None.
Yeah, no.
We talked about it yesterday.
Hang on.
Maybe there is a rationale.
Look, I've been reading history and I'm a very ardent student of history. You know, every good idea can be perverted, right? Hindutva is actually a form, or it is claimed, a form of decolonization, that every foreign impact should be just done away. But then they took it to dehumanizing human beings, right? Exactly, instead of actually saying that Indian things should be celebrated, they started copying Nazis. And their foundational books actually talk about that. I mean, Savitri Devi's book actually declares Hitler as an avatar of Vishnu. So all this has been happening, and naturally they now attack minorities, they attack the lower castes, which are a majority in India, as brutes or subhumans. When they do that, of course it is going to become a monstrous thing. What I'm saying is that everything starts from rationality, and then it gets perverted.
Which is very dangerous.
Talking about Savitri Devi, lots of our viewers, they might be considering that Savitri Devi actually was an Indian. No, she wasn't. She was a white supremacist who actually came to India in 30s, and she
1930s,
1930s, and she started propagating the same ideas of Hitler in India, and that's when the whole ideology of Hindutva, it just flourished at that time. And at that time, it is understandable that they were doing it just to counter the British, because British were ruling in there and they just wanted divides within the India. That's why she was sent by the
British?
Hitler. Yeah, the the Nazi intelligence. They sent her, Savitri Devi, just to try to widen the gaps. Earlier, Farrukh was talking about how geniusly, Modi tried to divert towards
smartly, kind of.
I would call it I would call it very cute. But for me, the most important thing was in the speech, when did he lose the connection with the teleprompter? The word Indian talent. And that's it. He goes blank. When he's talking about the Indian talent, and the screen goes blank. And this is very important for me.
Ironic. Farrukh, I believe you wanted to do a fact check.
Regarding Savitri Devi, I say this because I was not that much tuned to the Hindutva research only until a few years ago. Now I am. I keep on reading a lot. But I was studying particularly the far-right neo-Nazis, right? And one of their, famous books or their Bible is thought to be Turner Diaries. So the guy, Pierce, his name is, his website also contains Savitri Devi's book. So I started reading Savitri Devi because name seemed Indian, right? Here is a woman who actually believes in Greek, pre-Christian civilization, and she believes that equality or egalitarianism is wrong, and the idea of casteism is good. Then because of that, she finds a country which has monism, right? That means that there are castes, and she believes in that, and she comes to India, and with due respect, it was neither the German intelligence nor the British who were doing it, right? If you go to the nitty-gritty or the sociology of what was going on in India, Hindutva people were bolstered by another country which was fighting tooth and nail with the British. It was the French. French for 30-year war which ended up culminating in the American Revolution. But here also, repeatedly, East India Company was given very tough time by the French. This woman, she comes here and latches herself to the RSS and others, and from there she starts creating a new brand of Nazism and Hindutva combined, where Hitler is an avatar of Vishnu, and from there she has actually polluted all the Hindutva ideology.
Brother Farrukh, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not wrong, I think Savitri Devi's one of the parent was from France, and the other from obviously I think Greece.
But and she also had the roots, the British roots as well.
Exactly.
There are three nationalities she comes from, but her actual beef was that somehow Christianity destroyed the Greek civilization.
Right. Quickly coming back to what Modi has shown us with this blunder, I just want to point out whether or not such things are habitual of political leaders and are brushed under the carpet and don't really have an impact, or is this something that we're overanalyzing?
Who are you asking this?
Both of you. Anyone.
Both of us.
Yes,
right.
Faisal,
Very quickly, regarding prompters are a necessity, and I understand that that is an important thing. But he was not speaking in English, a foreign language. He was speaking in his own language, right? So, because he's, it is said that he's quite an orator, I think that he could have very quickly and effectively communicated what he was earlier thinking of, right? Didn't happen. And that is the problem repeatedly, from science to other things. Modi has actually become a laughing stock. Honestly, when India and Pakistan are eyeball to eyeball, and all of a sudden he comes on television and he says that I was telling the air chief that you can take the cloud cover to actually evade radar detection.
But
no, hang on.
Right.
It happened after 2 months.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that means there are two things which are very important to understand very quickly.
Yes.
One, that Modi was never corrected by his own military leaders.
Exactly.
That you were wrong.
Yeah.
And secondly, he took pride in it.
So it actually
they've been
seems
saying
that he
Hail
can
Modi.
justify anything then,
Yeah,
no?
yeah. I think
you can get away
we
with
are
this as
lucky.
well.
We come from a country where current leader is extremely extempore. You know, majority of the leaders, there are leaders who actually tend to keep sort of notes with them, and whenever they want to get in touch with their own narratives, of course they go through the notes and all. But our Prime Minister is extempore, and time and again he has proven that he doesn't need any teleprompters or any parchees, as we always used to say.
Right,
But
we're just
yeah.
absolutely out of time, Faisal. So we're going to have to end it over here. But of course, the discussion on Modi is a never-ending one. But the real unfortunate aspect, of course, is that the people of India are suffering, and they don't really understand what it is that they're faced with. And I hope that the saner voices actually prevail and see the leaders, particularly Narendra Modi and his regime, as to what it really is. Thank you very much for watching The Debate. I will see you tomorrow at 9.